Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We have often heard a very common saying that the dog wags the tail. But yesterday I was reading a local newspaper and I was impressed. And he was talking about the current political situation in Canada. And he said, it's the tail wagging the dog. Now, he added the word NDP before the tail and liberal before the dog. So the saying dog wags the tail was replaced with tail wagging the dog. And on reading that and after recapitulating the whole political scene, I fully agree with the writer. It was an editorial in a newspaper, local newspaper. And I found that the despicable, detestable, undemocratic tie up between the two is really the tail wagging the dog, and the tail is absolutely anti Canadian values. And it's going to be very expensive, very costly for the Canadian people, for you and me. It will help the government to spend more. It would encourage parasites. It would encourage people not to work. And the payment for all that will be made by honest, hardworking Canadians. So, hey, Canadians, hold on to your wallets. This NDP tail wagging the liberal dog is going to bite you badly. What has happened is that to help liberal sustain power, NDP wanted its pound of flesh. And the liberal leaders, with a view to hold on the power for benefits to themselves, not to the country, they have worked out a deal. And the deal is to increase unemployment benefits and paid sick leave provisions for the people who are unemployed. And the return for that is that Jagmeet would support Trudeau for the 3 more years. Now, apparently, there's nothing wrong with helping people when they are sick. There's nothing wrong with helping people when they're unemployed. What is wrong is that the definition of unemployed has not been worked out. Is unemployed really unemployed? Or is he underemployed? Or is he working on the side? And there have been cases when the people have been working on the side and claiming EI. I remember somebody came to me for a job at that time my company was running. And he said, sir, he'll accept 60% salary, but in cash. I said, why? I don't pay cash. He said, well, I'm getting EI, and if I get a full job, then I lose the benefits. I refuse to hire him. A man who is not honest to the revenues of the government cannot be honest to me. Anyway, so this is going to be a very big problem. But then that's not alone. Singh was interviewed by the press and he has granted passage to the throne speech because combined the two parties hold a majority of the seats. So, crux of the matter is that as long as Mr. Trudeau is willing to spend taxpayer money, not his own money, but taxpayers' money, to satisfy Singh's increasing demands, right or wrong, because the leftist agenda of Jagmeet is basically anti Canadian values. It penalizes hardworking, honest, clear headed Canadians in favor of terrorists, convicts, felons, and parasites. So now we have a prime minister who once said budgets balance themselves. Ridiculous. But then he said so. So since he's a prime minister, people believed him. And his instinct is to run up huge deficits indefinitely and all the time not making the government lean, but growing the size of the government. And he is beholden to Singh and NDP, who demand even more spending. The result that you run out of money. And what do? Raise taxes. This is a cause for alarm. I remember once we were sitting together and the former Prime Minister of Margaret Thatcher pointed out in the meeting. The problem with the socialism is that you eventually run out of the money, but it's other people's money. You run out of other people's money, taxpayers' money. And Singh is a votary of socialism. Singh and Cortez, Bernie Sanders, they are the same block of people who themselves lead very lavish lives. Look at Singh himself. Bespoken suits, absolutely immaculately dressed, which is not wrong, which is good. I appreciate that at least one politician is appropriately dressed. But when such a person talks of socialism, it shows hypocrisy and duplicity. So now look at the deficit. The projection of the federal deficit was 343 billion. With a new agreement with NDP, the deficit rises and crosses the bar of 400 billion. Imagine the moment a Canadian child is born, he is under a debt to the tune of thousands of dollars. Each one of you has an obligation to pay. The public debt is more than 400 billion. And when asked by the press, what does he think of it? Jagmeet had the audacity to say, if the response has been more compassionate and caring, then and left less people behind, you can thank New Democrats for that. Compassionate are encouraging hypocrisy, laziness, procrastination, resulting in more drug abuse, prostitution, violence, crime. This is going to happen. And imagine the government already what they're doing. Multi-million dollar scams, paying to the charities and getting the payback. One of the ministers traveling to Indonesia, where she eats a dog, that's her choice, but then she bribes her way into illegal cockfight. When a minister can go and indulge in illegal activities abroad, then what do you think of that? And such a government would be supported, propped up by Jagmeet Singh. The result now. Look at the global picture. In the real world, if the governments could continuously run huge deficits while paving the states with gold, they would have done it by now. But they have not done it. Sensible governments do not run huge deficits. Compare the deficit under Harper government and under Trudeau government. You will see the difference for yourself. And the result is that the Fitch rating has downgraded Canada's credit rating because of Trudeau's spending plans. The plans are there, they have not been implemented, and only at the very thought, which is absolutely abominable, abhorrent, hateful, Fitch rating has said no. The credit rating cannot be AAA. It has to be downgraded. And what about the others? Moody, Investor Service, S&P Global Rating, and DBRS kept Canada's debt at their highest rating, and they are going to have questions about big spending Liberal government driven by a bigger spending NDP opposition, operating as if he has a majority government, which he would have when NDP becomes the B team of Liberals, of course, having their pound of flesh at the same time. You'll see the next 3 years that the government would not be what the people voted for. People voted the minority government of Liberals for the agenda that they had put, the manifesto they had put, not for the manifesto that NDP had. They knew that Trudeau might deliver something with a modest deficit increases. They knew that the promised balanced budget would never materialize. They were aware that the government cannot be fully trusted. That's why it became a minority government. It was not a majority government like that of Harper or of earlier Trudeau time. That 4 years of Trudeau had shown to the people. But they never trusted NDP, and that's why NDP had thus such a dismal result. And now NDP becomes a major partner of the government, getting all the benefits without any risk. All the blame will shift to Trudeau and the Liberals, and all the benefit would accrue to NDP. I would say that he is a good strategist. But look at the democratic aspect. Financial, we have seen that we is devastating. What electorate had proposed, these unscrupulous politicians have disposed of. So where is the sanctity of elections and the results of democratic process? If by underhand means two opposing parties come together to deliver not a common minimum program but maximum exploitation of the people and wastage of the common funds. This is something beyond comprehension of you and me, but not of the people who want to exploit the nation's resources for purposes other than the good of the people. It's very easy to camouflage excessive spending because you can always say, well, we are going to give jobs, we are going to give unemployment benefit. But The reality is that they are creating a vote bank of unemployables, of parasites, and of those people who can only be the leeches of the system. Well, 3 years more, Canadians, be prepared for NDP tail wagging the liberal dog. And that is a travesty of nature, travesty of the system, and a mockery of the democratic process. But would you endure it? Well, you might have to endure it for 3 years, and then you have your right to have a proper government. I don't care for the party, but I care for the proper management, financial, political, social. I care for the good of the people. And this tie up between liberals and NDP is a disaster in the making. I can see the black clouds of disaster looming on the horizon. I am afraid of the deluge, economic deluge, that will destroy the integrity of this country. And I can feel pity for the country, for ourselves, because that's we are in for. Thank you.